I never planned to buy my brother's company. But Michael never planned to stop mocking my tiny shop either. Life has a funny way of evening the score. The annual Morrison family Christmas party was in full swing, crystal glasses clinking as relatives exchanged stories about their latest achievements. I stood in a corner, sipping water from a champagne flute, watching my brother hold court by the fireplace. "The merger's almost complete," Michael announced to our admiring relatives, adjusting his Rolex with practiced casualness. "Once GlobalTech absorbs our division, I'll be heading the entire West Coast operation." Our mother beamed with pride, the same way she had when Michael made varsity football, got into an Ivy League school, or landed his first executive position. Everything my brother touched turned to gold. At least that's what our family believed. "What about you, Olivia?" Aunt Margaret turned to me, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Still running that little business of yours?" I nodded, thinking about the meeting I had scheduled for tomorrow morning. "Yes, still consulting." Michael's laugh cut through the room. "Still running that tiny shop, you mean? What is it now, 5 employees? 6. I didn't bother correcting him. Let him think Summit Consulting was just a small storefront operation. Let him believe I spent my days helping local businesses with their taxes and payroll. The truth was far more interesting, but I'd learned long ago that my family wasn't interested in my truth. "You know, sis," Michael swirled his expensive scotch, "I could put in a word for you at GlobalTech. Get you a real job. Something stable." Our father nodded approvingly. "That's generous of you, son. Olivia, you should consider it. You're not getting any younger, and that little consulting thing of yours, well, it's more of a hobby than a career, isn't it?" I gripped my glass tighter, remembering the stack of acquisition papers sitting on my desk at home. Summit Consulting had stopped being little about 5 years ago, but my family still saw me as the same struggling sister who'd quit her stable corporate job to strike out on her own. "I'm fine where I am, thanks," I said quietly. Michael smirked. "Sure you are. Hey everyone," he raised his voice, commanding the room's attention like he always did. "Did I mention GlobalTech's CEO is coming to the party tonight? George Harrison himself. He's practically family now." Our mother nearly dropped her glass in excitement. "George Harrison? Coming here? Oh, Michael, that's wonderful." I checked my watch, knowing exactly why George Harrison was attending our family Christmas party. It wasn't because of Michael's imagined importance to the company. The party continued, with Michael growing louder and more boastful with each drink. He detailed his plans for after the merger, how he'd restructure his division, the changes he'd implement. "GlobalTech needs fresh blood," he declared. "Someone who understands modern business. Harrison's good, but he's old school. Too cautious. Once this merger goes through, I'll show them how it's done." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:30 p.m. Michael straightened his tie, ready to greet his CEO. "Now everyone," he announced, "act natural. Harrison's not just my boss, he's going to be family once the merger." The door opened and George Harrison walked in, his silver hair immaculate, his presence commanding immediate respect. But instead of greeting Michael, his eyes scanned the room until they found me. "Ms. Morrison," he said, walking straight past my stunned brother. "Thank you for coming. I wanted to personally thank you for making this transition so smooth." Michael's face contorted in confusion. "Sir? I don't understand. You know my sister." Harrison looked surprised. "Yo, her." He glanced between us. "Ms. Morrison, Olivia, is the reason I'm here tonight. She's the one who acquired GlobalTech." The room went completely silent. Michael's drink slipped from his hand, splashing across the expensive carpet. Our mother grabbed the nearest chair for support. Dad's face had gone sheet white. That's impossible," Michael stammered. "Olivia runs a small consulting firm. She does bookkeeping for local shops." I set my glass down carefully. "Actually, brother dear, Summit Consulting Group is a bit more than that. We're a multinational corporate acquisition firm. And as of yesterday, we own controlling interest in GlobalTech." The truth I'd hidden for years was finally coming out. Summit Consulting Group wasn't just my tiny shop. It was one of the largest private equity firms in the country. While my family dismissed my career choices, I'd built an empire in silence. And now that empire included my brother's company. Michael's face had lost all color. But But the merger. My promotion. About that, I said softly, we should probably talk about some organizational changes. The silence in the room was deafening. I could practically hear the gears turning in my family's heads as they tried to process what they'd just learned. Michael remained frozen, his empty glass still dangling from his fingers, as George Harrison continued speaking. Ms. Morrison's acquisition team has been remarkably efficient, Harrison said, seemingly oblivious to the tension. The way Summit Consulting structured the deal. Absolutely brilliant. Your sister is quite the business genius, Michael. Michael's face went from white to red. This is a joke, he sputtered. It has to be. Olivia doesn't, she can't. Can't what, Michael? I asked quietly. Can't run a successful business? Can't outmaneuver GlobalTech's board? Can't be more than just your struggling little sister. Our mother finally found her voice. Olivia, darling, why didn't you tell us? All these years we thought. You thought exactly what you wanted to think, I cut her off. Remember last Thanksgiving? When Michael mocked my tiny shop, and you all laughed. Or last Christmas, when Dad suggested I take some night classes to improve my prospects. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We were just concerned about your future. My future. I couldn't help but laugh. Dad, Summit Consulting Group manages over $12 billion in assets. We've acquired 17 major corporations in the last 3 years. That tiny shop you were so concerned about? It just bought GlobalTech for $4.2 billion. Aunt Margaret choked on her wine. Uncle David dropped his plate of Christmas cookies. But Michael looked like he was about to explode. You can't do this, he hissed, stepping toward me. You can't just walk in and take over my company. I've worked there for 8 years. I'm about to become West Coast director. Harrison cleared his throat. Actually, about that position. No, I interrupted softly. Let me handle this, George. I turned to my brother. Michael, we need to discuss your role at GlobalTech. Perhaps somewhere more private. My role. His voice rose an octave. I earned that promotion. You can't just. Your office, I said firmly. Now. The walk to his home office was tense. I could hear the whispers erupting behind us as we left the party. Michael slammed the door behind us, his carefully maintained executive composure cracking. How long? He demanded. How long have you been planning this? Was this all some sort of revenge scheme? I sat down in his leather chair, his precious status symbol, and watched him pace. Believe it or not, Michael, not everything is about you. Summit has been eyeing GlobalTech for years. The fact that you work there was an interesting coincidence. Coincidence? He laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe that? You've always been jealous of my success. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Let me show you something, brother. I turned the screen toward him. His eyes widened at the number. That's not possible. My personal net worth, I said calmly. And that's just what I keep liquid. Summit Consulting Group is worth considerably more. Tell me again about success, Michael. Tell me how concerned you all were about my future. He sank into a chair, his anger deflating slightly. Why didn't you ever say anything? Would you have believed me? Any of you? I leaned back. You were all so convinced I was a failure. Remember when I missed Dad's birthday party because of work, and you told everyone I was probably too embarrassed to admit I couldn't afford a gift? I was at a board meeting that night, finalizing the acquisition of Turner Industries, a $2.8 billion deal. But you all just assumed I was making excuses. Michael's face had taken on a greenish tinge. The Turner deal. That was you? But that means. His eyes widened as realization hit. The Madison merger last year. The Carson buyout. All Summit Consulting, I confirmed. We've been quietly acquiring companies for years. Building an empire while you were all so busy pitying me. And now you own GlobalTech, he whispered. You own my company. Yes. I stood up, smoothing my dress. And as the new owner, I have some concerns about the West Coast Division's leadership. Michael's head snapped up. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? I pulled a folder from my bag. I'd brought it just for this moment. Let's talk about your performance reviews, Michael. Your risk assessments. The corners you've cut, the regulations you've skirted. That's standard business practice, he protested. No, I said sharply. It's sloppy. It's arrogant. And under Summit's leadership it stops now. He slumped in his chair. So that's it? You're firing me? Your own brother. Actually, I slid a document across the desk. I'm offering you a choice. You can either accept a transfer to our Minneapolis office, a lateral move, same salary but no promotion, or you can resign with 3-month severance. Minneapolis. His voice cracked. But my life is here. My friends, my contacts. Your inflated sense of importance? I added. Your country club membership? Your executive parking space? Yes, you'd lose all that. But you keep your job. Your choice. Michael stared at the paper, his hands shaking slightly. This is cruel, Olivia. Using your power like this. It's cruel. Cruel. I stood up slowly. Like mocking my business at every family gathering was cruel? Like telling our parents I was a disappointment was cruel? Like suggesting I take a job as your assistant was cruel? The sound of the party drifted in from outside. I could hear our relatives still buzzing about the revelation, probably rewriting history in their minds, pretending they'd always believed in me. You have until New Year's to decide, I said, walking to the door. Oh, and Michael, that corner office you've been bragging about? I'm turning it into a break room. I returned to the party to find my parents huddled with Aunt Margaret and Uncle David. They fell silent as I approached. My mother stepped forward, arms outstretched. Darling, we had no idea. All this time you've been so successful. Why didn't you tell us? I stepped back from her attempted embrace. Would it have mattered, Mom? Would it have changed how you treated me if the success wasn't as visible as Michael's? Of course it would have, she insisted. We're your family. No, I said quietly. You're people who share my DNA. Family supports each other. Family believes in each other. Family doesn't need proof of success to show respect. My father cleared his throat. Princess, we may have been wrong about some things, but we always wanted what was best for you. Did you? I raised an eyebrow. Or did you want what looked best to your country club friends? George Harrison approached then, saving them from having to answer. Ms. Morrison, I should head out. Early meeting tomorrow to discuss the transition. Of course, I smiled. I'll have my team send over the final documentation in the morning. As Harrison left, I heard my mother whisper to Aunt Margaret, "Did you hear that? She has a team." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Now they were proud. Now they were interested. Now that my success was visible, quantifiable, impressive to their social circle. Michael emerged from his office then, looking shell-shocked. He walked straight to the bar and poured himself a large drink. Our relatives immediately flocked to him, but for once he had nothing to say. I gathered my things ready to leave. This wasn't how I'd planned to reveal the truth, but perhaps it was better this way. Clean, public, undeniable. Leaving so soon? My father asked. But we have so much to talk about. You must tell us all about your company. Actually, I checked my watch. I have an early flight to London tomorrow. Board meeting with another acquisition target. But it's Christmas, my mother protested. Yes, I smiled. And for the first time you all know exactly why I can't stay. No more pretending I'm avoiding family gatherings because I'm embarrassed or struggling. I'm leaving because I'm successful. Because I built something extraordinary while you were all too busy doubting me to notice. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Michael, remember what you said earlier about putting in a good word for me at GlobalTech? Don't worry about it. I think I can manage on my own. The look on his face almost made up for years of condescension. Almost. As I drove away from my parents' house, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives suddenly eager to reconnect, to understand my business, to claim they'd always known I had potential. I deleted them all. Success is the best revenge, they say. But the real victory wasn't buying GlobalTech, or exposing my brother's mediocrity, or even proving my family wrong. The real victory was never needing their approval in the first place. 3 months later, Michael took the Minneapolis position. Last I heard, he's doing adequately in middle management. My parents now proudly tell their friends about their brilliant entrepreneur daughter, conveniently forgetting the years they spent dismissing my achievements. Me. I just finished another acquisition. A small company called Morrison Technologies. My father's pride and joy. the business he always hoped Michael would take over someday. I had my assistant inform them of the change in ownership. After all, some things are better delivered in person. And some things are better delivered with a memo that reads, "From the desk of your tiny shop owner."